In today's video, we'll be recapping the New York Jets against the New York Giants in Week 3 of the preseason. What's going on, guys? I'm Matt O'Leary, back with another video. Today's topic is going to be the New York Jets Week 3 preseason game against the New York Giants. But before we get into that, I just wanted to remind you that you can follow me on social media at Matt O'Leary NY on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You could also shop for all your favorite New York sports merch. I'll link it down below, so that way you can check it out if you're interested. So, Week 3 of the preseason. Let's start with the offensive side of the football because that's where the Jets started, and then we'll go from there. So, the Jets got the ball first on the opening kickoff. They won and received, which is rare. They usually like to defer. So, they put Sam Darnold on the field, who is getting his second preseason start in a row, and it wasn't too surprising. This is where they've been saying and going in these things and trying to make Sam take this job, and again, he showed why he should be the starter Week 1. So on the opening drive, they went 11 plays, 75 yards for a touchdown. To me, the biggest play that sticks out, obviously besides the touchdown one, is this 3rd and 13 play right here. Sam Darnold doesn't see anyone open, so he decides to run for the first down and then slide after a gain of about 15 yards. He showed fantastic pocket awareness and was able to escape and make something happen. That's something special. A lot of times rookies will try and force something, but Sam had the awareness not only to not throw in a bad spot, but also to run enough for the sticks and then slide so he didn't get hurt. So hats off to him. That was a fantastic play. And then obviously the touchdown pass to Terrell Pryor. He hit him going right over the middle and then continued right into the end zone. So that was also a good one to see. I like Pryor to be in here and getting some plays going on too. Hasn't played much at all throughout the preseason and this summer. So certainly good to see him back on the field. And that's kind of the player that he can be for this Jets team going forward. He's going to be a red zone threat. And I'm excited to see what not only him, but Curse, Enunwa, and Anderson can do. I like those four as a receiving core. Darnold suffered from a lot of drops. I counted 4 of them, so his final stat line wasn't fantastic, but it didn't really justify how well he actually played. He was 8 of 16 for 86 yards. Again, a few drops mixed in. I counted 4 of them. Robbie Anderson's drop really bothered me. That's a ball that he's got to come up with. And then the tight ends really didn't play well at all. Herndon, Leggett, Tomlinson, all 3 of them really struggled offensively and on special teams too, which we'll get to momentarily, but none of them has really jumped out and won this job, and that's kind of bothered me a little bit as well. The rushing attack was weak again, but that hasn't been much of a surprise, and no, I'm not going to blame Bilal Powell, even though he was able to run for the touchdown. I thought he struggled for the most part, but I'm putting that more on the offensive line. As a total collective group, they rushed for just 66 yards in the game. So obviously that's not ideal. You want to get that number over 100, and that's not going to help a rookie quarterback. You want to be able to run the ball, and yes, I like the Crowell and Bilal 1-2 punch, but with the Jets struggling offensive line, it's really going to be tough to get something going. The Jets need to get this thing healthy and pray that everyone can play up to par. And again, Bridgewater was good. That's what I expected him to be. He is a good quarterback. I just don't think he's the starter here. And that's why it's better for the Jets to trade him and get some value back for him. I don't know necessarily where they're going to trade him to. It's still yet to be seen because injuries continue to happen. And let's see if anything happens in training camp or Week 4, or someone just decides that they're not satisfied with their quarterback room. So perhaps at the end of Week 4, he goes, right? I can't see him being on the opening night roster. He was good, 11 of 15 for 104. Probably should have threw a touchdown pass, but he too struggled from a drop. So for me, here's my thing with Bridgewater. He's not going to be the backup because he has more value to the Jets as a trade. You need pass rush, and we'll get to the pass rush soon because it was non-existent. And hopefully, if you trade Bridgewater, you can acquire a Dante Fowler. That would be the direction I would want to go. Yes, Khalil Mack is the dream, but someone like even Dante Fowler, who I would say is a league average pass rusher, makes all the difference in the world. You'll start to see the secondary play better. You'll start to see Leonard Williams play better. So that's just something that they're going to need to address. And potentially Bridgewater can help that. His biggest thing will be either A, getting picks back for him, or B, landing a pass rusher. That's his role with the New York Jets. Too many penalties for me. This is a mix of everything between offense, defense, and special teams. 13 penalties for 108 yards. 8 of them came in the first half. Unacceptable. That's one of my biggest issues with Todd Bowles. His teams have been really undisciplined. And yes, Rex Ryan had some undisciplined teams as well, but they got to cut down on the penalties. This is just atrocious. Every single week they're struggling with penalties, and it's really not good at all. And we talked about special teams, briefly mentioned it. They were just flat out awful. Again, cannot cover a punt. A blown punt assignment was just awful. No one stayed in their lane. Everyone over pursued. It was atrocious. And then Trenton Cannon again fumbled. He has 2 punt return fumbles and a kickoff return fumble. So 3 fumbles in 3 weeks for Trenton Cannon. He is holding on to a roster spot by the skin of his teeth right now. He was supposed to be a kick return specialist. Obviously couldn't handle the punts. We saw that in week 1 against Atlanta, but he was supposed to be someone who it was so fast he would be effective on the kick return. Absolutely not. That's why you have to have Andre Roberts on this roster to handle the kick and punt returns. You're going to have to use a roster spot on him because no one else can do it. Their special teams are bad, and part of the reason why is because they struggle so much in their mid-round drafting. In rounds 4 through 7, that's where you're supposed to land special teamers, and the Jets really haven't. Outside of Rontez Miles, who hasn't been playing, can you name a special teamer who has any kind of impact on the Jets? I certainly can't, and that's a bad thing. On the defensive side of the football, they were very good against the run, especially in the first half with the starters, which is all we really care about. Jonathan Stewart had -7 rushing yards, absolutely awful performance, and a fumble too. Avery Williamson made a really great play to strip the ball out. Leo Williams recovered it and then ran it to about the 50-yard line. That was awesome to see because the Jets really struggled to create turnovers on defense. So if they can get Williamson, who can strip the ball out every once in a while, that'd be a huge plus. Gallman had 23 yards on 11 carries, so obviously they contained him for the most part. And then in the second half in garbage time, Presley had 71 yards on 12 carries, so good for him, obviously. But the Jets' second and third team defense was really not playing well at all, so that wasn't a huge surprise. As for the Jets' starting secondary, I think they're looking a little overrated right now. Buster Skrine got beat a couple of times. Morris Claiborne got beat really bad, but luckily he was able to survive it and make a play inside the 5-yard line. But they're not looking so good right now, and part of the reason is because of their lack of a pass rush, like we mentioned before. If they had someone who could get after the quarterback, it would make the quarterback a little bit more uneasy in the pocket, maybe force some bad throws, and then Jamal Adams becomes a ball hawk. And then Tremaine Johnson becomes a ball hawk, which is exactly what you want. But they're kind of trying to compensate for their awful pass rush, and right now it isn't working. And Buster Skrine, we know he probably can't stay healthy. Morris Claiborne might not stay healthy. The Jets lack depth, especially defensively, and that's worrying me a little bit. I think they'll be good this year against the run. I think they'll struggle against the pass. Darren Lee has still shown me that he's a below-average starter. I haven't liked what I saw from him really any of his first 3 years in the league, but especially this preseason. I was hoping that he would make the next step, but right now he just seems undersized and not making any plays whatsoever. And Leonard Williams looked good again. He's a good player. He's not great, but he's very good. Both him and Adams are your building blocks on defense. Both are young, so build around those guys, and hopefully in a couple of years you have a real solid defense. Other than that, for me, biggest takeaways, again, Sam Darnold is going to be the starter on Monday Night Football in Detroit. It just makes too much sense. He hasn't looked overwhelmed at all. His one interception in the entire preseason came on a 4th down play where he was trying to force the ball. That's completely fine. He's thrown for 2 touchdowns in the preseason. He can play. This kid looked legit against the Giants starters, who they have some playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. Just think about it. Olivier Vernon, Landon Collins, they're a legit defense, and he held his own. I think he could absolutely hold his own. And yeah, I know that people are saying that 3 games in 11 days or whatever it is, but you got to get him in there eventually. And the earlier you start this process, the longer your window of opportunity is open. So that's why I'm all aboard on that. And you got to cut down on the special teams mistakes and the penalties. That is crucial for the New York Jets. Missed extra point also, so some few things to work on. Week 4 of the preseason against the Eagles isn't going to be anything special at all. It never really is, but get me to week 1, and let's get this thing rolling. If you agree with anything I said, comment below, or even if you disagreed, comment. We'll get into it in the comments, or you can get at me at social media at Matt O'Leary NY. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.